Hey guys, want to make a quick video showing you essentially the finished product of the knife that I've been referring to as my military style fighter. There's really only just a couple of very minor details left before I will consider this knife completely finished. One will be the addition of a Tek-Lok for this Kydex sheath. And finally, also concerning the sheath, I think I want to tighten this gap up just a little bit more and get a little bit more retention on this sheath when the knife is fully inserted, as the sheath is just a little bit looser than I would prefer it right now. But other than that, the knife is essentially done. I may also chamfer this lanyard tube just a little bit more as well. But what you're looking at here is essentially the overall package of the knife, again minus the Tek-Lok, which is a very minor detail. But very happy with how the sheath came out. Pretty simple, nothing too fancy, but it did form very nicely. I actually used what I believe USA Knife Maker is referring to as Boltaron. It's a newer form of Kydex that I believe Tracy lists as having a new formula from their supplier. And compared to the other Kydex or Conceal-X that I've purchased from them in the past and used, I think I actually do prefer this most of all. Worked very easily, formed very tightly. You could actually almost see the bevels in the blade formed so well. And overall, it just really came out quite nicely. But I just decided to go for a pretty parallel design there. 3/4 inch eyelets spaced for a large Tek-Lok, which will be mounted to these two here. Though if for some reason you wanted to mount it there, you could as well. Then I have 3 smaller eyelets for leg lashings. Probably use these two for that, just for some extra security. And then on the back I just added a drainage hole for ventilation and to drain out any water that might get in the sheath. And you can also see here on the corner some added ventilation point as well. So it should be fairly maintenance free, pretty easy to keep that clean and dry. But as you can see, formed very tightly, very centered, and extremely happy with how that came out. Now as for the knife itself, as you can see, I used green canvas micarta for the scales, and I did actually route these. I wanted a little bit cleaner lines, a little bit smoother handles, or flatter handles rather. And figured that type of geometry was much more fitting for this style blade than what I would normally do, which is just round over the whole scale for more of an elliptical pattern. And I was actually very pleased with how that came out. It's very comfortable in hand, extremely ergonomic, and definitely exceeded my expectations for comfort and ergonomics for the overall knife. Now as for the hardware, I used brass. Gave kind of a satin finish overall on that. Pretty much the same satin finish for the overall knife, as you can see. And the brass was kind of a last minute decision. I was originally going to use stainless to kind of match the blade steel. But after thinking about it, I figured the brass contrasting with the green would be much more fitting for a military style knife. Kind of pay homage to the military dress a little bit better. So very pleased with how that came out. I think it's quite fitting for this knife. Very classy. And of course you can see the satin finish on the blade. Not quite a full flat grind. Then I got a convexed 3/4 swedge, give or take. and overall kind of a drop point blade. And as you can see, I kind of dropped the whole blade in general relative to the handle, just for clearance in the hand, more ergonomic cutting. Got my maker's mark on this side, which I did choose to offset just a little bit, just to make that pop some more. Some aggressive jimping on the back, very sharp, very effective for thrust cutting, and just overall security of grip. Got my name and the steel type on the back. And overall, this knife far exceeded my expectations when I finished it. Not that I was expecting it to come out poorly, but just the overall package, the balance, the feel in the hand, the fit and finish. Just really couldn't be happier with how this came out. And I know I say this probably about all my knives when I finish them, but this is easily my current favorite. Just couldn't have come out any better in my opinion. And as far as the balance point, it's right here at the first finger choil. I know a lot of guys like to keep their balance points right where the handle meets the blade. Personally, I think it's much more sensible to have it on that first finger choil, where a lot of your pivot's going to be, say if you're chopping or cutting. I think overall it just really helps lighten the knife. And although this is a pretty big knife, maybe somewhat hefty, it really doesn't feel that heavy in the hand. Seems very lightweight, very well balanced. Again, very ergonomic and comfortable. And I think this would be a very enjoyable knife to use. Now the edge I did get fairly thin, so it's an excellent slicer. Put a 20-degree angle on each side for the edge, 40 degrees inclusive. And this knife is hair popping sharp, performs very well. And of course we have the Skull Crusher pommel there, the glass breaker. Not too sharp, not too aggressive, but definitely a good impact point. And overall, just couldn't be happier with how this knife came out. Now, if anybody's wondering, this knife currently is spoken for. I need to discuss pricing and otherwise with the potential buyer. But somebody did message me about this knife shortly after I posted the video on just the pattern. So I told him I would hold that for him upon finishing the knife, and let him know. And if he decides not to buy it, I will let you guys know as well. Although I am very tempted to keep this for myself. I think I'm just going to go ahead and let this one go. And may make a couple more in the future. This may even be one of my standard patterns that I go back to. I'm really not sure yet. It is a lot of work to do these larger knives, especially with the wider blades, the wider grinds. It just takes a lot more time and effort to finish properly. And as for dimensions, by the way, it's about 11 inches overall, 5.5 inches from tip to handle, and then from handle to point. So again, very balanced. Feels great in the hand. Now, due to the thinness of the blade, I probably wouldn't designate this necessarily as a chopper, although I think it would function in that role. I think it's much more suited for slicing, even batoning, doing work like that. But I just thought I'd throw that in there. And again, once the sheath gets tightened up just a little bit more, this knife will be good to go. So about at the 10-minute mark here, go ahead and call that good. If you guys have any questions, comments, please feel free. I appreciate the views, guys, and I'll talk to you later.